Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Batman Cape Crusader Season 1. So this came out on Amazon Prime just this year. I finally seen the entire season. I reviewed the first episode, go watch that. No, wait, no I didn't. I didn't review the first episode. I had thoughts on like the art style and everything. It's my bad. So, after watching this entire series, there are 10 episodes. How this series came to be is interesting. Originally, it was supposed to be on HBO Max, but David the Devil Zasloff decided, hey, I don't want this show. And so, like, Bruce Timm, who was creating this show while it was still in development, shopped it around and Amazon Prime picked it up. Originally, they wanted, what's his name? Kevin Conroy to voice Batman, but sadly he passed away. May he rest in peace. So they found a new actor. More people came on board with executive producers and stuff, like J.J. Abrams of all people, and then Matt Reeves, because he did the Batman live action movie, and James Tucker, a person who has worked with Bruce Timm over the years in DC animation. And so, like, Bruce Timm even stated that he didn't want to do another Batman the animated series because he's already done that and everything. He wanted something different. I think they came to him with making a sequel series to that or something like that. But he said he wanted to do something fresh and different, and that this show would be more Batman the animated series than Batman the animated series. Does he not realize this show looks similar to Batman, the animated series, and has a similar feel and vibe to it? He said this show would be more noir and it would be more of a detective show and stuff like that. It's hard for me to watch this show and not compare it to Batman the animated series. I love Batman the Animated Series. Batman the Animated Series is the best Batman adaptation ever. It is the holy grail of Batmanism and everything. So when watching this show, it's hard for me to it's hard for me not to like compare, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I tried my best. But when the art style looks similar and everything, it's hard not to. Honestly, for me, like, if you was to tell me that these men were making a Batman cartoon series, you got Bruce Timm, who's part of DCAU, Batman the animated series, Superman, Batman Beyond, Justice League, those earlier animated movies and stuff, James Tucker, who worked on Batman Beyond, Justice League, what else? The Legion of Superhero, which I'll be talking about in the coming times. Also Batman Brave and the Bold, and he took over for those newer New 52 type animated movies and stuff. J.J. Abrams, who did Star Trek and did Lost and what else? He did Star Wars at that point in time, and Matt Reeves, the Batman. Is Blair Murakami doing this show as well? I'm not sure. If he is, then him with all that other Batman animated stuff and DC animated stuff I talked about, Batman Beyond and stuff, and as well as Teen Titans. If you was to tell me that these men were gonna make the most amazing Batman cartoon show ever, I would agree with you because they're all good at what they do, and most of them, except for one, has worked in DC and everything. However, I'm just not feeling this show. There's just something off with it. Like, there's a lot of stuff for me that's off with it and everything. Some of the voice casting doesn't match with how they look. I still feel exactly the same way I do about the animation style and the coloring, if this is supposed to be noir and everything. Some of the storytelling was a bit lackluster. Like it just didn't engage me all that much. Like it would start off pretty good, but end kind of flat. The direction in which they took the storytelling with Harvey Dent, it's like they tried to make a live action series, but in animation form. Animation and live action don't mix. I mean, Young Justice kinda did that, and somehow they succeeded, especially in their first season. But then, by season two and all the other seasons of Young Justice, I just wasn't feeling those seasons. It took me a long time to like the season two of Young Justice, but all those other seasons, no. I couldn't get my head around how they tried to make a live action series out of animation. And that's what they're doing here. Animation works so well with comic books, and live action, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Like there's a reason why live action, like comic book stuff, takes the direction they do and is a bit more serious, more somewhat more grounded, more drama than action stuff, you know what I'm saying? There's a reason why it does that. Animation, when you add a lot of drama, you gotta have a good balance of drama, action, storytelling, this and that, and the voice cast gotta be stellar. There's just something about this series just is not doing it for me. Bruce Timm said that like we were gonna see more of like, you know, a grounded detective version of Batman. And yes, you do see Batman do detective stuff, but not in the capacity I thought he would. Not like in live action and stuff. Like sometimes you'll see him sneak around a room and he'll look at like a checkbook and, oh, look who's writing these checks out to these certain people that are committing crimes. Duh. That's not really using your brain, in my opinion. And, you know, and when you do see him do detective work, you have no idea exactly what he's doing because it's animation and he's on a computer or looking through a paper, but you never really see what it is and everything. I want to see good old fashioned detective work. I want to see like even in Batman the animated series, you had him doing a little bit more detective stuff. Like he'll take a soil sample or like some smut that will be somewhere, put it in like the computer and analyze it, and it will tell him what it is. Now, of course, this is set back in the 1930s, 40s, so his computer and stuff not going to be that advanced. That's fine. I want to see him mess around with chemicals and stuff. I want to see him take some lint or some dirt or some hair follicles or something, put it in some chemical mixture and, you know, write some stuff down, do some math and try to figure out where the heck this is and where it came from and all this other crap, you know what I'm saying? And I really feel like I didn't really get that. Also, in detective work, you got to go to point A to point B and start interrogating more people, which sometimes you kinda saw him do that and you kinda didn't. Who exactly is doing the detective work in this show? Well, it's the actual cops and detectives themselves. Like in this show, they wanted to emphasize more on Bruce Wayne than Batman and everything, and get to know Bruce Wayne and who he is. I felt like we have no idea who this version of Bruce Wayne is. He's just a typical Bruce Wayne slash Batman. There's trauma from his parents dying. He's grumpy. He beats people up. You know, he dates a bunch of women. And that's all I really got from this version of Bruce Wayne. Your typical Bruce Wayne in every adaptation and everything. I didn't get anything new. You know, and I felt like I just don't know who this Batman and this Bruce Wayne really is. He's just your generic Batman slash Bruce Wayne. I got to know who the the detectives are a whole lot more, because for some reason it seems like this show revolves around the cops more than they do Batman in this series. I feel like sometimes you see the cops in the Cape Crusader animated series more than you do actually Batman and everything. And it's them going around from point A and point B trying to figure stuff out, interrogating people and this and that. Like, I just feel like this is another Gotham show, but in animation and stuff. And that makes sense when it comes to Matt Reeves, because he wanted to make a Gotham PD like television series, and his Batman felt a whole lot like Christopher Nolan's Batman, you know. But like J.J. Abrams, why is this dude on this project for? He's known for making projects, screwing up fandoms, and then ditching them for like another fandom and everything. He did it with Star Trek, he did it with Star Wars, and now he's doing it with DC comics, animation stuff. But like, so my main gripe with this series is like a couple of things. Like, I just don't feel like it's a detective show. I also feel like it doesn't revolve around Batman. I know more about Barbara Gordon in this series than I do Batman. And everything, I know a bit more about Renee Montoya than I do Batman. I know more about Harley Quinn than I do about Batman in this series. I know more about Harvey Dent than I do Batman in this series. I know more about the gangsters and the crooked cops in this series than I do about Batman and stuff. And part of that is just my own analysis, and part of that is just also comparison to Batman the Animated Series. Now, Batman the Animated Series was never really truly about like Bruce Wayne and Batman and stuff. It was mostly about the villains and how he was going to stop them. But you did get little insight into like Bruce Wayne's life and stuff like that. And it helped made it more dramatic. It was the characters that helped bring that series out in the villains. And they're trying to replicate that here with the supporting cast. I just don't care for the supporting cast because in other series, the cops were never really a big deal. Except for the Batman animated series. And the Batman animated series, that Bruce Wayne, you got to see more of his personality and everything because he was younger and stuff. Like, you also got more of Batman's personality because they had to try to make him different from Batman the Animated Series. Also, the cops in the beginning, in the first two seasons, were a major deal, the two detectives and stuff. And, one of them used to be really good friends with Bruce, and that came to be some really good drama. And then his partner doesn't like Batman, so that was even more good, juicy drama. And then when his best friend cop turned into Clayface, he befriended that one cop who doesn't even like him and stuff. That was a whole lot more interesting than this. But then, of course, by the third season of the Batman, the cop angle was completely dropped and it just went into the Bat family. And you got to know who the Bat family was, Here, everything is just reinvented. The Bat family, Dick, like all the Robins, pretty much. Every Robin from the comics is in this series and get a solo episode where they're orphans going to like the circus. And there's like, I think her name is Neptune or something like that, or something like that. It's like this one girl who has to siphon off the energy from other kids to stay alive or something like that. And she can't be around the sunlight, kind of like a vampire. But they reinvented all of them to having all the Robins be little kids and orphans and stuff like that. And they don't really get no time to shine. Barbara Gordon is a bigger player in this series because she's older than all the Robins, and she works for the Gotham PD and everything. I think she might be a lawyer or something like that. And we get to tangle with her and see what she's about, and it feels like sometimes it's more about her. But you get to know more about her and all this other stuff. And also, why are people saying that Bruce Timm is trying to hook up Batman and Barbara again? I don't get that in this series because, yeah, she asked for his phone number because there's no bat signal. And remember, in the old Adam West show, they had like a telephone and stuff. And so, in terms of characters, I just feel like, it's more about the cops. Like, you get the whole Renee Montoya and Harley Quinn, they're like an item, but they also just reinvent the personalities of all these characters. That can be a gamble because when you know what these characters are like for so many decades and you're trying to change it up, you're either gonna like it or you're just not and everything. And this version of Harley Quinn does not set well with a lot of people and stuff. Like you have Harley Quinn, who the or Dr. Quinzel, who is more upbeat and bubbly, but then you have a Harley Quinn who's more serious and sinister and everything. And she makes a bunch of like wealthy men do whatever she wants and everything, committing crimes. And while that's interesting, it does take away from who Harley is. I mean, some gonna like it and some don't. And she has a relationship with Renee Montoya. And and apparently Harley survives her ordeal and everything. And it's just kind of like they should be supporting characters and don't feel like the main characters. Kind of like they did in Batman the Animated Series. Yeah, we should get to know them for at least one episode or so, but they're in it like a lot. And James Gordon actually isn't in it this much either. But you assume that him and Batman will be like chums and everything, but they're kind of not. They've also reinvented how some of the villains are. Like, they brought in Firefly, and basically he's just a manic who likes to set everything on fire. But it doesn't matter because he dies in this series. Harvey Dent has been kind of taking the Nolan route where he's a district attorney and he's less interesting. In Batman the Animated Series, we got to see that he has like, a different personality disorder and stuff. Like he has tendencies of violence and everything. They set that up before Two-Face ever came. Well, actually no. When they first had him, he was nice, so you assume he's nice. But in the Two-Face episode, we knew he had a split personality. And what brought that out was the explosion and everything. And then he just became Two-Face, but was still like not corrupted, but kind of like because he wanted his ex-girlfriend, and so it's like he struggled with who he was and that whole duality thing. Here is just kind of flat. It's like they rushed the writing, which they probably did because the writer's strike and the actor's strike took over. So a lot of stuff feels rushed in this series. Like Harvey Dent just feels like the Harvey Dent from the Nolan series. He's a cop who just happens to be a little angry at times. And this version, he makes a deal with like the mob. He turns into Two-Face, but he's a vigilante and everything. And then he just dies in the end. And he's not really that bad. If you don't have a bad Two-Face who suffers from duality, then what's the point in even creating him and bringing him on the show? And his new look looks terrible and stuff. It just looks terrible. Then they bring in new villains, some old, some new, and I'm just not feeling it. When I thought of a new war, I just thought it was going to be grounded, like really, really grounded, like Nolan stuff, no supernatural stuff. But then you have like Clayface, and this version of Clayface, man, was boring and everything. Like he was just boring. And I'm just like, he was not interesting like he was in the Batman the Animated Series. Yeah, I can't take my nostalgia goggles off. I just can't because Batman the Animated Series is too great and amazing of a series. And that whole Clayface introduction episode and B-Taz and everything, that was breathtaking. And the animation was breathtaking. Here, the animation looks cheap. I don't know what kind of animation they're using, but it looks like that flat and dull flash animation that a lot of cartoons are using now because it's cheaper. Marvel started using it about 10 years ago and they won't get rid of it. DC's been using it for some of their Tomorrowverse animated movies and stuff. It doesn't have that fluid feel when you watch the animation. Like, say, Batman's cape moves so generic, like it doesn't move like a real cape like it used to. The fighting is kind of stiff, the walking is kind of stiff, the mouth movement is kind of stiff. And that is a problem with me because I'm expecting this like how is like he's like animation 20 years ago was so good. Like the Batman, their animation style was way better than Batman the animated series because they started using computers and they started mapping out people's movements when they fight, kind of like Avatar the Last Airbender. But now they're all like, okay, look, this is cheap made, push it out as fast as you can. And some people say it's because of the budget. That might be a reason, but you want to know something? I don't think it is, because when you look at the Tomorrowverse animation, that animation is very stiff and very flashlight, similar to this. So I don't think it's a budget because that's the animation style a lot of studios are just using now for American animation. Marvel is still using it. Like, what was it? Marvel Spider-Man? Like, that animation was really stiff and everything. Take the animation style from that thing Bruce Timm did a while back, that short, where Batman fought Solomon Grundy. I assumed this animation show was going to have the exact same style as that. Boy, was I wrong. I mean, it's not as fluid as that. The color, like, look at the color, like that golden brown tint redness to it and stuff. That's a great color to it. Like, you really feel like you're in like a different like element and everything. You feel like you're in a different universe. You feel like this is not set in the modern day. And I played around with some of the like colors and stuff like a while back, remember? And a lot makes a difference when you change that color palette. It's just way too bright. Now, I've already talked about the whole penguin female thing. Like I said before, I don't care about that. I just care that she looks exactly like a man version of the penguin who just happens to have boobs and red lipstick. They should have made her look different and have a completely different personality if they was going to go that route. My last complaint is just the voice cast. Oh, also, I don't like Catwoman at all in this. I mean, at all. This is the most uninteresting Catwoman I have ever seen in my life, to where she's just some poor girl and she steals and a lot of stuff she just seems to have all of a sudden. Like, she makes a costume real fast. She has a car with a cat motif to it really fast. And it's just, she's so uninteresting in this series. And all she does is get locked up where her maid or servant person took all her money because she was so much in debt. Like, she's so uninteresting. But the voice cast doesn't match the way these people look. I'm just not really feeling like any of the voice. Like, what's his name? Harmish Linklater. He's trying to do a Kevin Conroy Batman the Animated Series voice, and he's very close to doing it, but it doesn't have no real emotion, no real feeling to it. It just feels like he's reading lines and trying to change his voice. He doesn't sound like a real character. He sounds like a generic person trying to do a Batman voice and trying to do a Kevin's voice. Some of the voice casting is pretty good. And it's funny how they got Diedrich Bader to voice Two-Face when he used to play Batman and like Harley Quinn in Batman Brave and the Bold. And so it did get an early renewal and everything for season 2. Now, I hope they improve on some stuff in season 2. I want to see more Batman. I want to see Batman doing more stuff and getting to know him. A lot of people keep saying this is the most amazing thing they've seen since Batman the Animated Series. And they say this is Batman the Animated Series was never noir. It never had that feel. I always felt it was. Just in the sense of that it had that old school vibe to it. I still don't understand why people think this is the most amazing thing they've ever seen. I think it's okay. Like, I don't think it's terrible. I just think it's all right, okay, but needs some improvement. And it's like people have seen good Batman animation before. They've seen Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Batman Brave and the Bold. So you know what good Batman storytelling looks like. So I don't get why people want this watered down version. And could Bruce Timm just be losing it? Like, is he losing his magic? Is he losing his Bruce Timminess and everything? Because I said this before. Bruce Timm does some of his best work when he has this team right here. When he has himself, James Tucker, Dwayne McDuffie, may he rest in peace, Glenn Murakami, Alan Burnett, I think Dan Reba. When he has these people, oh, and Paul Dini, when he has these people working with him, it's like magic. It's like gold. It's what you expect from DC animation and storytelling. You know what I'm saying? Like, this right here is the dream team. But when he does things on his own or works with other people, it doesn't have that same magic. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's something that's lacking in everything. Like, he needs this dream team right here. They are what helped him make Batman the Animated Series and Superman and all the other stuff so good what it was, you know? It's just, there's just something about this new team. It's like they have so many different ideas and they're not all blending in very well. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.